Well, it's Tuesday, so that brings us to Talk About It Tuesday. But before we get into what we talk about on Talk About It Tuesday, let's talk about the things we are not talking about. We're no longer talking about, we're no longer talking about the defunding of Planned Parenthood. We're no longer talking about that. That's not in the news anymore. We're not talking about Carly Fioruna's continual assertion, that she has actually, with her own two eyes, seen a video where a doctor delivers a live fetus during an abortion and says, keep it alive so we can harvest its brain. She's doubled down or tripled down on her double down. She saw that. We're not talking about how that's a complete and utter lie. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about, hey, here's the thing. We're barely talking about Donald Trump and his crazy shit that he's been saying this last week. We're not talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which encompasses 40% of the global economy and will definitely affect your job. Anybody else find it strange that the only thing that's actually been fucking touted as a good thing by the Republicans is this during this current administration? But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the fact that Russia has basically kicked us out of the fight in Syria and has... Vladimir Putin has basically, he's the Russian Donald Trump. Get out of the way. I'll show you how to do this. You guys don't know nothing. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about illegal immigration anymore. We're not talking about illegal immigration. And for some reason, illegal immigration always ties into our veterans, even though the one of this is harnessed to the other for absolutely no reason. We're not talking about how horribly we treat our United States veterans who need health care. We're not talking about the homeless, which includes our United States veterans. We're not talking about, we're not talking about the Clock Med, or whatever it was that Fox News called him. We're not talking about that anymore. We're not talking about the cargo ship that capsized off the coast and people are missing during hurricane or tropical storm or whatever it was, Joaquin. We're not talking about that. The only thing we are talking about is the Second Amendment again. We're talking about guns. We're talking about gun laws and gun control and who's going to come take your guns. That's what we're talking about. There's a million other things in the world that we could be talking about right now. Meaningful things. And instead, we're focused on Obama's coming to take your guns. The Second Amendment shall not be, the government shall not infringe upon your right to carry a gun. That's the conversation we're having. We're not discussing why this kid did what he did or this guy did what he did. We're not discussing that. We're not discussing the mental health issues in the United States. We're not discussing the fact that people are crazy. This country's in shambles. And I'm not blaming Obama. That's like when Bill O'Reilly said that 6.5 or 7 years into it and our borders are still not secure, as though like there was some giant gate that opened the day that Obama was inaugurated and that illegal immigration hasn't been a problem for since we fucking decided we had a goddamn border. We're not discussing that. Instead, we're discussing guns. Your right to carry them and to use them to shoot another person who you decide doesn't have a right to live. That's the conversation we're having, yet again. And I gotta just wonder if maybe, just maybe, these things aren't being used to distract you from all of the other things I just mentioned. And that maybe, just maybe, you're being misled and distracted and misdirected. I don't know. What the hell do I know?